If I had to start all over again and try to get lean from scratch, here's exactly what I would do. So, first and foremost, this is where I started. So, as you can see, I was very skinny, barely any muscle definition, and I just had no size at all. Now, I tried eating everything, right? I tried eating more, but I couldn't gain any weight. Guys, like most skinny guys, you just try to stuff as much food down your face as you possibly can, right? Just to gain mass, just to actually see some muscle growth and eventually get some size. Now, I also guessed what meals to eat. Of course, I went down the YouTube rabbit hole of, you know, trying to figure out the best meal plan for my size, my age, and my weight. And little did I know, I was going to be fed with the same chicken and rice and protein shakes. Now, I also lacked major confidence. Obviously, this was due to the fact that, I couldn't fit in my clothes. Everything looked baggy on me. And I just didn't I didn't feel good in that small frame. And then also, I never gained any real muscle and results were taking forever. Now, obviously, to build any type of noticeable gains, make noticeable progress, it is going to take some months. However, I felt like I was just running around in circles trying to figure out what worked. Now, once I finally optimized my diet and my workouts, I transformed into this, right? I got a huge confidence boost. I was a lot more aesthetic. I had the V taper, I had the abs, cap delts, all of the above. Now, on top of that huge confidence boost, my testosterone blew up through the roof. Obviously, I had more muscle mass, more energy, my libido was right, everything was on point, right? As a man, to function properly, your testosterone has to be high. Now, also, I had a gym slash life balance that actually worked. Now, a lot of people say that you can't have a gym slash life balance. There is no such thing as that. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Guys, once you get jacked, you actually get a six pack, you get lean, that 1% physique, you can have a gym slash life balance, right? You're not going to be in the gym 7 days a week for 2 to 3 hours at a time. That's not needed and it's unnecessary. Now that I actually got jacked, guys, I can literally go to the gym for 3 hours a week, 3 days, 3 hours a week, and still maintain this physique. However, it took a lot of work and effort to even get here in the first place, right? I always relate this to whenever you're at work and you notice the higher ups or the big boss, right? He comes in, he barely does any work, but he gets paid all the big bucks, right? So that's pretty much at the position that I'm in right now, right? I can barely do any work, but I'm gonna reap all of the benefits because I got here in the first place. So in reality, all I'm trying to say is you just have to get lean one time. Just get lean once. Now, I also don't have to track a single macro ever again. Guys, I pretty much eat the same meals every single day. Can I switch it up? Yes. Do I switch it up? Sometimes I do. But for the most part, I'm eating the same things. And this is why I don't have to track a single macro. I don't have to be on MyFitnessPal every day, 24/7, trying to figure out, did this fit into my meal plan? No, bro. I don't have to do any of that BS. It's unnecessary. And, I pretty much know my macros. Now, like I just said, it is sustainable. However, you can fall off in the deep end. And that's exactly what happened to me. You know, I fell victim to the relationship weight, right? So I got into a relationship, got into a year long relationship, and I fell off. I completely fell off the rails. Obviously I fell into the boyfriend trap of listening to my girl when she said, "Oh, you can eat this, you can eat that." Nah, bro. I fucked off completely. And as you can see, I gained a gut. This was the heaviest I've ever was in my whole entire life. I got all the way up to like 210 pounds, right? I had a clear gut. For any of you guys say that's not fat, I literally had a gut. I was inflamed. I had low energy. Libido was, really low. And everything that I had here, I lost by getting this big. Now, however, I applied this aesthetic ascension that I'm going to talk about and explain to you guys later on in this video. I applied the same method that got me from here to here, and I just spammed it again. When I got this big, I spammed it again and transformed into this. Now, as you can see, I'm even leaner here than I was in the first two pictures, right? I'm leaner. I had a low body fat percentage. My libido was still high. My energy was still high. And some would say I even look better. So again, guys, in this video, I'm going to explain the exact method that I used to get me to 10 to 12% body fat, six-pack abs, shredded to the gills, and just obtain that 1% physique. Now, this does also work if you are obese. However, I've never been obese. I don't know what that feels like. I did get overweight, but I didn't get incredibly obese. However, I do work with guys who are more so on the obese side, and this is one of my guys, Ed, right? This is one of my clients. This is when he first came to me. He was sitting around anywhere from like 270 to 265. And then we dropped 40 pounds in 4 months, and he literally gained a V taper, lost the damn love handles, lost the gut, and he looks more cut up and toned, right? And this, we're literally just getting started. In another 4 months, he's gonna damn near have a six pack, right? So again, he applied this same exact system that I'm gonna explain. Same diet, same workout regimen, same everything. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, the first pillar of the aesthetic ascension that I'm gonna cover is arguably the most important. Guys, you have to understand your nutrition is gonna make up 80% of your progress. If your nutrition is not dialed in, you will not get jacked, you will not get lean. And I'm gonna die on that hill. I'm telling you, you cannot outwork a bad diet. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I'm gonna break this down into the things that I was doing wrong and what I actually did to fix it. So the first thing that I did was adopt the ideology that if it fit my macros, it was okay to eat. Now, that's gonna be wrong on so many levels. Here's the first thing. So again, guys, when you go to the grocery store, you shop in between the aisles. A lot of the foods that are in the aisles, they're covered with seed oils. You know, they're covered and filled with bad ingredients, bad additives, red 4, yellow 6, all these things, right? Sucralose, all these things that are just going to disrupt your digestion. They're going to kill your test, and they're just going to, fuck up your body's overall function, right? So you cannot just say if it fits my macros, it's good to eat. No, you have to look at the label. You have to look at exactly what you're consuming. Now, the second thing that I did was over consuming to gain mass. Again, that's pretty much a dirty bulk. And I know a lot of skinny guys fall victim to this. You just try to eat as much as you can just to gain mass, right? But that stems from the bad mentality. You're trying to get the results as fast as you can. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you try to just dirty bulk your way to the top, it's going to take you even longer to cut all of that excess fat, all that excess weight that you gained off of you, and then build muscle. So that dirty bulk to then cut method is straight BS. Now, taking BS supplements. Now, again, as a skinny dude, I fell victim to mass gainer. The bigger dudes are always asking about oxy shred. Guys, again, all these things that are just gonna mess up your digestion. And your digestion is linked to your testosterone. So again, if you have a bad gut, if you have bad digestion, your hormones are gonna be out of whack. Now, buying easy, ready cook meals. Now, the problem with these meals are, right? There's meal prep companies that, they don't seem bad at face value. They don't seem bad. But again, these meal prep companies, a lot of times they're cooking the foods in seed oils, soybean oil, uh, grapeseed oil, right? All these bad seed oils that are just going to inflame your body. Now, only prioritizing protein. Again, the traditional gym bro is going to tell you to just maximize your protein. Oh yeah, bro, you need a gram of protein per pound of body weight. No, bro, you got to prioritize your micronutrients. That's going to be more important in order to actually build lean mass. And then eating meals at whatever time I felt like. Now, you can't just wing it when it comes to, eating your meals. You have to time them properly. Here's what I actually started doing that actually worked for me and actually got me to the physique that I have today. Prioritizing my testosterone and micronutrients. Guys, you have to prioritize your cholesterol. You got to prioritize, zinc and everything else. These are going to be micronutrients that are going to boost your testosterone, and that's going to make it easier to build lean mass and drop body fat. You can't just prioritize protein. Now, cooking whole food meals. I literally remember, midway through my fitness journey, I remember buying the freaking bags of chicken breast, cut up chicken breast from Target, and just warming that up in the oven. And then I remember sitting there thinking like, damn, bro, I've been doing this for so long and I haven't seen results. It's because it's BS, bro. You have to cook your meals. You guys want the easiest route to get from point A to point B. No, bro. It's gonna take some work. It's gonna take some effort. Now, if you just want to have an average physique, if you just want to lose weight, yeah, sure. You know, you can buy all these BS foods and these pre-made meals and eat them and lose weight. Yeah, you're gonna lose weight and gain a little bit of muscle. But if you want that top 1% physique, if you want results, like sustainable results, you're gonna have to live accordingly, right? You're gonna have to make your meals. You're gonna have to eat at the right times. Now, carb manipulation, that's exactly what I was just talking about. You want to eat your complex carbs at least an hour or two before your workout, right? And then you want to eat your simple carbs right after your workout. Now, reading ingredient labels. Again, this all ties into the ingredients and everything like that, guys. You want to make sure that whatever you're consuming is good and it's not going to mess up your digestion and it's not going to leave you inflamed. Now, needing to track macros. Guys, I wasted so much time trying to track my macros because I was constantly switching up my meals, trying to, get the easiest meal to fit my macros. And I was wasting so much time on MyFitnessPal trying to figure out which meal fit my macros. Now, let's go over to what I looked like when I was eating the wrong foods. Guys, I was always bloated, right? As you can see here, I was bloated like hell. I had the muscle definition, right? This is me when I only prioritize protein. I still had a little bit of muscle definition, of course, because I'm still going to build some muscle. But as you can see in my gut, I was bloated like hell, right? I was always bloated. I was always lethargic. My libido was low. I had no energy. And then I also, as you can see here, I had a face full of acne. I had a huge boil on my nose because my digestion was all screwed up, right? When I started to switch from that and started to actually eat healthy, eat how I was supposed to, that's when I got lean. That's when I got jacked. And that's also when, as you can see here, when my face cleared up, right? I got no more acne. My face is less bloated. I feel great. I have the most energy I've ever had in my whole entire life. But again, this is only because I started eating the right foods. Now we're going to get into the right foods that you should be eating. Now I'm going to get into the grocery list that I follow and all of my guys in my program follow as well. Guys, first and foremost, you have to understand whenever you're shopping for groceries, you should be shopping on the perimeter of the store simply because that's where you're going to find all of your whole foods. That's where you're going to find all the single ingredient items. Whenever you make your way into the center of the store, that's where you find all of the foods that have chemicals, artificial food dyes, artificial flavors, seed oils, and the list goes on. And all that stuff is going to do, like I said, it's going to inflame you. It's going to fill you up with all these seed oils. It's going to elevate your cortisol levels. And it's just going to, fuck up your digestion overall. So what you want to do, you want to be shopping for whole foods. So I'm going to break this down into proteins, carbs, and fats. So the first thing that we see for our protein is going to be grass-fed ground beef and steak. So why do we go grass-fed? We go grass-fed simply because, guys, you have to understand whatever animal that you're consuming, you have to make sure that that animal maintain the right diet as well. So whenever we have animals that typically don't eat a grass-fed diet, 9 times out of 10 they're eating a corn and soy diet. And whenever you have a corn and soy diet, that introduces you to a crazy amount of omega 6s. That's really just gonna, tank your testosterone, leave you inflamed, and just make your body not function the way it's supposed to. Right. So we want our cows and everything like that eating a grass-fed diet. Now, same thing with the eggs. The eggs have to be pasture raised. Same thing with the wild caught salmon. You want to make sure that the salmon, again, had a good diet. Typically, farm raised salmon, they have horrible diets. Fatty fish like cod, sardines are really good in omega 3s. And then we have shrimp. Shrimp is a very slept on protein. Shrimp is really good simply because it's very high in protein, it's very lean, but it also is really good in the micronutrient department. Now, chicken breast. Most people that follow an ancestral diet typically stay away from chicken breast simply because it doesn't have that much micronutrients. But you guys have to understand chicken breast is still lean protein. So that's pretty much the same macro breakup as a protein shake, but just without all the BS. So you still want to add chicken breast into your diet. Now, as for the carbs, you want to keep it simple, bro. No starch or bread or anything like that, but you want to go white rice, right? Pretty good fast digesting carb. Fruits such as berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. Dates are really good, but you don't want to have more than 3 per day. They're really good in cholesterol. That's going to boost your testosterone. Kiwis are really good for digestion. Bananas are a really good pre-workout snack. Pineapples are good in bromelain. Oranges are really good. And then watermelon for that citrulline. Potatoes are really good as well. Really good at digesting carb. And then raw honey. Guys, honey's going to be a really good pre-workout. You can have it on the fruits. You can have it on rice cakes. Honey's going to be really good for replenishing that glycogen. Now, fats. You guys have to understand this as well. When it comes to the way that you cook your food, that's almost as important as the food that you actually eat. So whenever you cook food in seed oils and all this other BS, you may as well just throw it out because now you just ruined its nutrient profile, right? You just put the seed oils into the food. So to mitigate that, to stop that, you don't want to be cooking in grapeseed oils, avocado oil, olive oil. See, now olive oil, typically you want to be eating extra or using extra virgin olive oil. But with the problem with that is it has a lower smoke point. And olive oil, regular olive oil, has a higher smoke point, but you don't want to be consuming that. So you want to cook with things like beef tallow. It's high in fat. It's going to be really good for your testosterone. Ghee, butter, and then you also want to have avocados because, of course, it's a really good healthy fat. Now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to the actual meals that you should be eating. So I'm going to give you guys a whole entire meal breakdown. So it depends on whether you're looking to add on lean mass or you're on the bigger side and you want to recomp, drop the body fat and add on the lean mass. So for my lean bulk guys, you want 30% of your diet to be protein, 50% carbs, and 20% fat. So you may see this and be like, what? 50% carbs? Yes. You need the carbs for the energy, number one. And number two, you need to be able to replenish those glycogen stores after your workouts, right? For that nasty pump. And here's the thing, if you're trying to add on mass, you want to have higher carbs as opposed to recomping because your metabolism is higher at this stage. And if you follow this clean diet, it'll be really hard to add on fat. Now, for the bigger guys, to recomp, your fats are going to be higher because that's what's going to keep you full for longer. And you really just need to decrease the carbs and get more steps in so you can then drop that fat, right? So for my recomp guys, it's going to be 40% protein, 15% carbs, and 45% of the fats. So for the meals, these are just some sample meals that I have my guys follow my program. Now, for the recomp guys, if you guys remember, my guy Ed that I showed you earlier, he stuck to this diet and the weight just melted off really fast simply because he was so ingrained in the average gym bro diet before he came to me. The Oxy Shred, protein shakes, protein cookies, hella chicken and rice. But once he stuck to this meal plan and he optimized his hormones, he literally dropped 20 pounds in his first month. Here's the thing, there's plenty of guys that drop weight that fast, right, in their first month. But a lot of that weight is usually muscle mass too. Guys, as you guys saw earlier with Ed, he lost a lot of that weight, but he didn't have any loose skin. He didn't have saggy tits. He maintained a V taper and he maintained a lot of his muscle mass in that process. So again, these are the meals that you want to be eating if you want to truly burn fat, drop off the excess fat, lose the love handles, lose the gut, while still maintaining a V taper and adding on more muscle in the process. So as you can see, meal number one for my recomp guys, you're going to want to eat a lot of eggs, right? 4 whole eggs in the morning, 6 ounces of ground beef, and 1 piece of fruit. Now for lunch, it's going to be 6 to 8 ounces of, you can have chicken breast, lean chicken, or ground beef. Then a potato and an avocado. And then the last meal, 8 ounces of steak or salmon, half a cup of rice, half a potato, and then 1 avocado. Again, we're keeping the carbs to a minimum, right? 15% carbs. We're keeping the carbs low, but we're keeping the fats high. For my lean mass guys, you're going to notice that the meal plan really isn't that much different. Again, it's just, more carbs for my lean mass guys and less carbs for the recomp. Now, as for the pre-workout, bro, keep it simple. Just some fruit and honey. You don't need any of this BS pre-workout that you see at GNC or anything like that. No, bro. fruit and honey will give you enough glycogen, will give you enough energy to complete your workout with intensity. So yeah, guys, this is the same exact meal plan that's gotten guys in my program like Ed to lose 20 pounds in this first month, and also the same meal plan that I follow. So you definitely want to screenshot this and save this. Everybody's favorite part, the training. Now, here's the thing about training, guys. The training is not gonna matter if your diet isn't dialed in. I'm gonna say that one more time. The training isn't gonna matter if your nutrition and your diet is not dialed in. So you can forget everything that I'm about to say if you're not eating right. If you're not taking the time out of your day to cook your meals, you're not taking the time out of your day to follow your meal plan, your training is not gonna matter. But without further ado, let's get into the training. So when it comes to training, a lot of people, again, have the bad idea or the wrong idea when it comes to training. Now, as you can see here, I put all three forms and variations of training. I put powerlifting, bodybuilding, and calisthenics. What I was doing wrong when I was starting out, I was trying to PR every single session. I was damn near injuring myself every session just to get a number, under my belt, just to get a new number under my belt. And I literally did injure myself one time, but I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. Now, switching splits every single month, guys. You want to stay on the same split until it gets old, until you kind of plateau. You want to stay on the same split, and a lot of people aren't gonna tell you that, right? I see a lot of guys trying to switch the split, right? You guys get the shiny object syndrome with splits. It's like, oh, I'm not seeing the results, but I want to switch to this new split that I see this guy do. No, the reason why you're not seeing results is because you're not dialing in your nutrition, right? And you're not training with enough intensity in that current split, right? So the split may not be BS. You're just not optimizing everything else, right? That's why the split's not working. So you want to stick to the same splits, right? You got to remove that shiny object syndrome out of your mindset, right? Now, training with friends. The problem with training with friends, the only reason why it's bad is because two things. So number one, you have to understand you're your own man, right? You have your own split. Your friend 9 times out of 10 is not gonna have the same goals as you, right? And even if he does, you guys are just gonna screw around all the time. You know you're gonna do that. You know you don't have enough discipline to just go through the workout, no unnecessary pauses or anything like that when you have your boy with you. Let's be real. Let's be real, bro. You know you're gonna screw around, right? So you don't want to be training with your boys, bro. Now, I used to do cardio before I lifted. Guys, you don't want to do cardio before you lift, right? You're going to burn a lot more muscle than you are going to be burning fat. And you want to use that extra energy that you have during your lifts. Now, you want to do cardio after your lifts. Now, the next thing, I was barely doing cardio. Again, guys, I was barely doing cardio because, again, I told myself, all right, I'm skinny. I don't need to be doing cardio at all. No, if you're skinny, yes, you need to be doing less cardio than the average person or the person that's trying to recomp or cut. However, you still need to be doing cardio to minimize the body fat that you're going to gain, right? So you need to be doing cardio. Now, I was also winging it with no real structure. Guys, I would go into the gym. Again, like I said, I had the shiny object syndrome when it came to my workouts and splits. And I just thought that, the biggest guy in the gym, whatever he was doing, I'm just gonna emulate. I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm gonna just replicate exactly what the guy that's on, a fuck ton of steroids is doing, right? And obviously that I was completely wrong. Now, what I started to do that was right was I incorporated the 3 pillars of training, right? Bodybuilding, calisthenics, and powerlifting. I don't care what anybody tells you. You have to incorporate these 3 pillars of training. There's going to be guys that say, oh, it doesn't matter how much weight you lift. BS, bro. Bullshit. You have to lift heavy to gain muscle. Why do you think people progressively overload, right? If you can progressively overload faster, obviously you're going to build more muscle, right? So you want to be able to incorporate the big 3, all of the big 3 lifts in there, right? Bench, squat, deadlift, and also, barbell rows and overhead presses. You have to incorporate these things into your split. And then bodybuilding. Obviously, you want to be doing your accessory and isolation movements so you can build muscle in that specific area. And then calisthenics, one of the most physically taxing forms of exercise, right? Calisthenics is going to allow you to build that lean muscle mass while still being flexible. Now, I stick to the same optimal split, guys. I've been running the same split for literally almost 2 years now, right? Because number one, it's efficient, it's fast, and it gets me the results that I need. I don't need to switch to a crazy split. I just need to do the basics. I need to do the things that are going to get me results, right? And I tracked my lifts and progressions, guys. If you are not tracking your lifts, you're not going to know how much progress you're making. You're not going to know what you did in the last session, right? And you should not be winging it, bro. I don't care if you remember or you think you remember off the top of your head what weight you did last time. No, you need to be tracking each and every single weight. Then I also dialed in 10K plus steps per day. Guys, again, just because you're skinny does not mean you do not need to be doing your steps per day. It does not mean you do not need to be doing cardio. Guys, I would say if you're on the skinnier side, I would say 7 to 8,000 steps per day. You don't really need to get up to 10K until you start seeing like really good progress and until you really start building some real mass. Now, recomp, you're gonna need 10. I would start off with 10, then 12, so on and so forth, right? But your steps, you're gonna need it more than the skinny guy, right? But the skinny guy still has to incorporate those steps per day, right? And then training with intensity, guys. Again, you don't need to be training till failure on every single lift, but you do need to be training with intensity. If you're able to do more than 12 reps on a lift that calls for only 8 to 12 reps, you need to up the weight, right? It's the weight is too little. You need to be doing more weight. Now, spending no more than an hour per session. Guys, you have to understand, less is more. There's no reason you should be spending more than an hour and a half in the gym. You're breaking down your muscle to the point where it's not gonna grow, right? You're entering a catabolic phase. Like you're not gonna grow as much muscle as you think by going longer in the gym. It's not gonna happen. And then using supersets properly, guys. Supersets are good, but only when they're done properly. If you're in a time crunch, you want to be doing supersets. If you know the workout calls for opposing muscle groups, right? So for example, if I'm doing chest and biceps or whatever, right, I'm doing a push pull split, or not a regular push pull split, but like a push pull day. I can do a superset, so I can do a bench, right, and then I can go off the bench and then do some curls, right? But I never want to do the same muscle group back to back, right? You want to use supersets properly. Now, let's get into how you should actually be training. So, this is a pretty beginner friendly split, right? If you haven't really seen any real progress and you're only training 5 days per week, this is a really good split to use. So, Monday, push, Tuesday, pull, Wednesday, legs, quad focused, Thursday, upper. So, a combination of both push and pull. And it's pretty much going to be some of the exercises that you didn't hit, some of the accessories that you did not hit on Monday and Tuesday. You're going to combine that into 2 on Thursday. And then Friday is going to be legs, but it's going to be hamstring focused. Now, an example of these splits, right? So for a push day, right? An example is the first workout you're going to be doing is the barbell bench, compound powerlifting movement in there. Then you're going to go to the cable fly, right? So you went from a compound to an accessory, cable fly, and then you got your calisthenics in there. Dips, right? You're going to end it with a calisthenics move. Now, the next pushing muscle is going to be your shoulders. So you got your seated shoulder press, right, for your front delts, and then you got the lateral raises for your lateral delts. Now, you're going to finish off with the last pushing muscle, which is going to be your triceps, right? So rope push downs and an overhead tricep extension, right? So pretty much you're hitting all of the same muscle groups per day, right? So push, same thing with pull, and then legs. So for legs, you want to split it up into quad focus and then hamstring focus days, right? So you can screenshot that, use that if you need to. And then once you get a little bit more advanced, you're going to want to bump it up to 6 days. Guys, There is going to be a phase in your journey if you want to get that 1% physique where you're going to have to go to 6 days, right? You can get pretty far with 5 days, but if you really want to push it to that next level, you're going to want to go 6 days, right? You're going to want to go 6 days for at least, 3 to 6 months. Guys, like I said, I don't have to push it to 6 days per week anymore, right? I can literally go down to three and still be fine. However, in order to really hit the same muscle group twice per week, this is the most optimal way to do it. So I call this the hybrid foundational split. So my Mondays, this is a split that this is similar to what I use, right? So Monday is going to be chest and back, right? I'm getting into opposing muscle groups. So chest and back. Tuesday, arms and shoulders, right? Push and pull on the same day. And then the leg day is going to be pretty much the same. So Monday, my push days, right? I'm only doing 6 exercises, right? And that's another thing too. You don't want to do more than 6 to 7 exercises per workout. That's going to be too much volume. So Monday, I'm benching, start off with a regular bench, then a barbell row, then a chest fly, lat pull down, seated row, then dips. So as you can see, I'm starting with a push, then I'm going to a pull, then I'm going back to a push, then two pulls, then finishing off with a push, right? So I'm literally doing a push and a pull workout in one, right? And then the good thing about this is that I hit each muscle group twice per week. So this is exactly why you would use a split like this. Daily habits and recovery. Guys, I would also say that your habits and your recovery matter more than your training. Because if you're not recovering properly, how are your muscles going to grow, right? How are your muscle fibers going to replenish themselves? It's not going to happen. So, this is what I was doing before. I was only getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Guys, in order for your muscles to grow, you need to be sleeping properly. At least 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Going into workouts cold. So, this is where I injured myself. So, long story short, 2 years ago, I was benching with dumbbells, and prior to the workout, I actually felt some pain in my wrist. When I got to the workout, when I got to the bench, I started dumbbell benching. I literally felt a pop in my wrist. I dropped the dumbbells instantly, and I was out cold of the gym for a whole entire 4 months, right? So to prevent that from happening to you, you must be warming up before you start your workout. No real form of recovery. Guys, you have to treat your body like you're an athlete, right? I don't care what anybody says. If you work out 5 to 6 times a week and you work out with intensity and you're eating properly, you are a athlete, right? Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You are an athlete. Now, if you're an athlete, you need to be recovering like one. Now, no schedule/structure. Guys, I didn't really, plan out my recovery days. I didn't plan when I was going to go to the cryotherapy lounge. I didn't plan when I was going to go to the sauna. I just did it when I felt like it, right? Then I also struggled with vices. I still struggle with vices, right? Still fapping, still smoking weed, still drinking alcohol. Guys, if you're drinking alcohol, you're never going to get jacked. Yeah, I was still struggling with all these low-level vices. Now, what I started doing that, got me the results that I have today is I started getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Guys, if you're not getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your testosterone is not going to be at its high. It's not going to be at its prime. Now, dynamic stretches before your workout and static stretches afterwards. Guys, this is so very important because of what happened to me. Right now, I don't mess around with my stretches. I always make sure that I do my stretches before my workout and also afterwards. For dynamic stretches, pretty much any stretch that involves controlled continuous movement and it prepares you for the exercise, right? So for example, if I'm gonna bench, I want to stretch out my rotator cuffs, right? So you ever see those guys in the gym, they have either the bar or they have the rubber band and they're stretching out their rotator cuffs, right? Those are going to be the things you're going to need to do before your workout. And then afterwards, you want to do that same stretch, but you want to do a static version, right? So pretty much you want to hold it, right? So for example, for my rotator cuffs, it would be something like this. You want to do this after your workout. Now, sauna or cryo every other week. Guys, this is so very important. Again, guys, like I said, if you're going to be working out 6 to 7 times a week, or my bad, 5 to 6 times a week, you are an athlete and you need to treat yourself like one. Guys, the cryotherapy lounge that I went to, I kid you not, every single time that I would go, I would see an NFL player, right? Or some type of professional athlete in there. They were doing the same exact recovery that I was doing. After I noticed that, I knew I was in the right place, right? Now, it's not cheap, but this is why, you should also have your finances in order. But yeah, guys, like you need to prioritize your body, right? So cryo, can't get some cryo in. You can do a cold plunge. Cold plunges aren't bad. And then you also want to be going in the sauna. But yeah, I do this every other week. Now, consistent gym slash meal schedule. Guys, you have to set yourself up for success, right? If you're failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Guys, I mean, like a lot of people just make the excuse of, oh, no, I had a long day at work. I'm not going to go to the gym. No, bro. Just put it in your calendar. You know exactly what time you're supposed to go. And that's going to prevent you from making that excuse every single time. And then I was also viceless, right? Guys, again, like I said, I don't go to the club every weekend. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't fap. I don't do any of these things that aren't going to move the needle forward, right? So I'm doing myself a disservice by indulging into these vices, right? And it would have kept me in the same spot that I was. Now, the last thing is mindset, right? Mindset is huge, right? Before I even get into it, guys, mindset is huge. If your mind isn't in it, you're never gonna see it manifest in the physical realm, right? So the things that I was doing, my work was only linked to my results. Again, guys, I would only go hard when I would see results. When I would look in the mirror, I would check the scale to see if it moved up. And I didn't see that, right? I didn't see the results on the scale or in the mirror. That was like, that was huge. That was demoralizing for me. I wouldn't even want to step foot in the gym, right? But it was only until I got out of that mindset and that way of thinking that I started to see results. Now, self doubt. I had so much self doubt. Guys, I would compare myself to all these guys on Instagram, all these IFBB pros and all these young LA athletes and think like, damn, like, they're all on steroids or all on juice. Guys, I compared myself to them, right? But here's the thing. Once I started to think that that was possible, like that all that stuff was possible naturally, that's what got me motivated to keep going and actually want to get it. Because I'm like, all right, let me reframe my mind. Some of those guys are probably on juice, but let's just say they're all natural, right? If they're all natural, I should be able to do the same things as them. I should be able to get the same results as them, right? If we're both natural. So that way of thinking kind of propelled me forward in the right direction. Now, lacked accountability. Guys, I know I said you shouldn't be working out with your boys, but here's the thing. You need an accountability group, whether it's a coach, a group of guys that are on the same path as you. You need something to keep you going, right? Because if you're only relying on motivation and the way you feel each and every single day, you're going to be cooked. Like you're never going to get to that next level by relying on purely motivation, right? Because an accountability group or accountability coach, someone that can see the things that you don't see, they're going to point that out, and that's what's going to get you to keep going, right? You only know what you're experiencing. So if you get a different perspective from somebody else, that can kind of reframe your mind in order to keep going. Now, lack of discipline. This also had to do with the fact that I was still struggling with vices, right? So I lacked discipline. Now, when I finally changed everything around, I gained a delusional self belief. Guys, like I just said, when I compared myself to those guys, a lot of the guys that are unnatural, I didn't know they were natural. I mean, I didn't know they were on juice and steroids and everything like that. So I was comparing myself to them. I was just like, fuck it, if they can do it, I can do it too, right? So I told myself that was the new standard. That was the new standard. I was gonna get that type of physique no matter what happened, right? Now, stoicism, guys. Stoicism is very powerful. So the reason why I became stoic was simply because like I realized like I can't be linked to the external results. Whatever happens, I have to be able to, take it to the chin and keep moving. So again, that's what got me to detach from the results and actually just focus on the inputs, the things that were actually going to move the needle and get me closer to my goal. Now, 10 pages a day. I recommend all of you guys who are struggling with consistency to read Atomic Habits. That's what's gonna move the needle forward and actually get you to realize, like, damn, you know, if I'm consistent, if I keep at this every single day, if I don't stop, eventually I'm gonna get there. So yeah, Atomic Habits is a really good book in order to get you in the right mindset. Now, everything that I read in Atomic Habits, I notated it and I applied it instantly. It's one thing to read 10 pages a day of whatever book you're reading, but it's another to actually apply it. And a lot of you guys, quite frankly, just don't apply it. Like, I know there's gonna be some of you guys that have watched this whole entire video, but haven't even taken a single note or a single screenshot, right? And then there's gonna be some of you that have done those things, but aren't actually gonna apply it, right? So it all depends on you at the end of the day, right? Like, you can, take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it, right? So, yeah, guys, it's all about how you actually apply the information that was, explained to you and told. But that was the end of the presentation of my aesthetic ascension. So, with that being said, guys, if you're tired of feeling stuck and you want to pack on real lean mass and make a transformation like me and my clients, click the link in the description, book a call, and I'm going to see if you're a good fit to work with me one on one. But until next time, guys.